Good morning. It's good to see everybody here today. I'm Ellis Arnold, class of 1979. Welcome back to campus. We're delighted to have you here. We look forward to the induction of the class of 69 in a few moments. We're going to begin now with an invocation from Reverend J.J. Whitney, our chaplain, class of 96. And at the conclusion of the invocation, we'd invite the class of 1969 to go ahead and make your way to the lunch line. And then as they begin to complete, the rest of you please follow through. So this time, JJ.
Let us pray. Almighty God, as we gather with this class of 1969, we lift up grateful hearts for who they have been to each other, the community they've created, the friendships they've formed, and the legacy they left on the campus of Hendrix College. Although years have passed with old buildings giving way to new, with an expanded campus and student body, the character of Hendrix remains true. We remember fondly the professors who challenged us and the traditions that formed us. We pray that in years to come, these relationships will be strengthened, no matter the miles or the circumstances, and that visiting Hendrix may always feel like a homecoming. May we celebrate who they are together as we continue in table fellowship and as we break bread. Thank you for this meal, for the gifts of the earth and all the hands who've prepared it, and for the Hendrix staff who've brought us together. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, JJ. So if the class of 1969 and your guests, if you'll please make your way to the line, we are ready for you. And then after everyone's seated, we'll begin the program. Thank you very much. Well, good morning again, everyone. And welcome to campus. Welcome to Alumni Weekend. I'm Ellis Arnold, class of 79 and Senior Executive Vice President, and we're thrilled to have you on campus today for this special induction ceremony. The Half Century Club Banquet is always probably the most anticipated event among the alumni office here on campus as we look forward to welcoming you back. And the roots for this event go back all the way to 1962. And it's interesting today that there are special connections with the class of 69 because this program was actually begun in 1962 by Dr. James Major, class of 1940, when he was the very first vice president for development at the college and instituted the induction ceremony for the class of 1912. So this is our 57th anniversary of the Half Century Club induction, and it's particularly meaningful that Tom Major, a member of the class of 1969, is going to be receiving his medallion today too. So congratulations, Tom. If you would, let's please join me in expressing our appreciation to Mike Flory and Chef Scott Pickens and Mindy Nichols and the entire dining services staff for our food and luncheon today. As I look around, I also see that we have some current and former and some retired faculty and staff. If you are any of the above, please stand so we can express our appreciation to you. Tomorrow morning in this very room, we will have our Hendricks Alumni Association Awards banquet, and we have some tremendous inductees tomorrow. Douglas Hutchins, class of 2005, will receive the Outstanding Young Alumnus Award. Heather Newell, class of 2011, will receive the Humanitarian Award. Carol Hampton Rasco, class of 69, another member of 69, will receive the Distinguished Alumna Award. And Teresa Austin will not be able to join us, but Teresa's class of 72 and will receive the James E. Major Service Award. I know we have people here today as well who have actually received among the Alumni Association Awards in the past. If you could stand and let us recognize you, that would be wonderful. Any past recipients of the Distinguished Alum Award, Service Award, thank you. And those awards are bestowed by our Alumni Association Board of Governors. So any current or past former members of the Alumni Association Board, could you stand, please? We thank you for your service. President Bill Tsutsui is the 11th president of Hendricks College, and he's here today to provide you updates and news on the college and to welcome you to campus. Bill.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a pleasure to welcome you all back to Hendricks. It is a joy to have you here with us today. Some folks I see pretty regularly around campus or in Little Rock, and many folks who I have never seen or met before. In either case, I am really glad you made it today, and on a day when it decided it was going to be spring for a change. Thank you all for coming. Now, before I get into the meat of my comments, let me thank all the folks who made today possible. Pamela, Owen, and her team are absolute marvels, of course. Let's give them a round of applause. As are the wonderful people at Dining Services who feed us here on campus every day, but might only get the opportunity to feed you once every 50 years or so. And last but hardly least, and we're going to do a lot of applauding for these folks today, thanks to all the members of the class of 1969 who have worked so hard on this event and this whole reunion weekend. For the organizing group and for everyone who traveled back today, thank you so much. Now, this luncheon is the start of a very busy weekend here at Hendricks. In addition to all the usual activities this year, we are celebrating the contributions to campus of an unusually large number of retiring faculty and staff, including the incomparable Barbara Horton, who many of you know from her lovely handwritten thank you notes for gifts to Hendricks, and who I will always cherish for the 5 years she was up here with me at this event, getting all the medallions ready to put around the necks of alums. She will be sorely missed on her campus, but her legacy is a strong and living one. I hope you will be able to make it to the celebration for Barbara tomorrow afternoon, which is a very busy time, of course, with many last lectures, with sporting events. If you're a baseball fan, you really want to see the Warriors baseball team in action. They have been ranked this year for the first time in college history and are playing fantastically. And we also have a very special 10th anniversary bash for the Miller Center, among other things. I would also like to ask if any of you have any carpentry skills or are bricklayers in your spare time. There is work for you over at the Creative Quad. We're a little bit behind schedule with all the wet weather we've had, and I would love to have a hand from you all. Now, over the course of this weekend, I will be attending about 100 events, and I think I'll be speaking at about half of them. Since making sure that you all get a full serving of Hendricks propaganda is a requirement of all the alumni festivities. So I'm going to try and be brief in my comments today, and not just because you will almost certainly be hearing from me again later. One of the things I've learned in my relatively short time in this job is that one of the most valuable things any college president can have in fundraising, when talking to prospective students, really whenever, is stories. Stories about the impact their institution has had on how it has changed lives and opened doors and created lifelong friendships and been meaningful, sometimes in ways hard to imagine or even believe, to a wide variety of people pursuing a wide range of careers, anywhere from down the street in Conway to the other side of the world. And I have found that one of the best places to hear these great stories and to learn things about Hendricks and its history that I didn't know is right here at this luncheon. So rather than talking at y'all for too long, I really look forward to listening to you all today, so I can recycle and repackage all the funny and inspiring and uniquely Hendricks things that you share. So, in that spirit of sharing stories, let me tell you one now. About 3 years ago, we had one of my statewide barbecue tour stops down in Benton, as usual in the Methodist Church Hall, and I met an alum from the class, I believe, of 1953. Back in my days at Hendricks, he confided to me with that twinkle of a fond memory in his eyes, we all really looked forward to Fridays. Why, I asked him. The end of grueling classes for the week, or the excitement about athletic events over the weekend, or maybe just the promise of some parties ahead. Oh no, he replied. Friday was pimento cheese day in the cafeteria. I found it hard to break it to him that we now have great pimento cheese in the caf every day. But I was also struck that 60-some years from now, there will be Hendricks grads from the class of 2019 who speak misty-eyed of Sunday, Thursdays, or Fridays, our current weekly extravaganzas upstairs, where ice cream sundaes and a startling variety of deep-fried foods are the highlights of the menu. In other words, a lot changes over the years and the decades here at Hendricks, but a lot of things, like that joy and very special dairy products at lunch, seems to stay the same. As I know there are quite a few folks here who haven't been back to campus in a while, perhaps even for half a century, what I thought I would do is talk briefly about Hendricks today and some of the ways it might have changed since your graduation day or the last time you were here. And then I'd like to talk with you just briefly about the ways in which Hendricks hasn't changed all that much, about those wonderful qualities of this place which define its character today every bit as much as they did 50 years ago. So here are just some facts and figures on Hendricks today. We have just over 1,200 students from 48 states and 19 countries. I'm not sure exactly which states are unrepresented, but I am guessing that perennially it is Montana and one of the Dakotas. So if you are from that region, please send us a student or two. 62% of our students are from Arkansas. 37% are from other states. About half of those from other states are from the Lone Star State of Texas, and we have about 1% international students. We have a very balanced population in terms of gender, which is unusual for colleges and universities, and especially small liberal arts institutions like Hendricks. We're 48% male, 52% female. 23% of our students are from minority groups, of which about 5% are African American, 6% Hispanic, and 6% Asian. It is a very talented group. The average ACT of freshmen last year was just short of a 29. And for comparison, 21 is the national average. 40% were in the top 10% of their high school graduating classes, and 74% were in the top quarter. We have 104 full-time faculty and a student-to-faculty ratio of 10:1, with an average class size of just 16. I'm fond of telling prospective students there is no back row in a Hendricks class. You are going to be involved whether you like it or not. We offer 32 majors, 34 minors, and a one-year master's degree in accounting. Our most popular majors based on last year's graduating class were psychology, biochemistry and molecular biology, biology, economics and business, and health science. Hendricks has the largest intercollegiate sports program in Arkansas by the number of sports that we offer. We field 21 NCAA Division III sports, 10 for the men and 11 for the women. Football, as you all know, came back to campus 6 years ago and has been a great success. Beach volleyball is just starting up this year. Why do people always laugh at that? 37% of our students are currently intercollegiate athletes, which is pretty phenomenal. Now, y'all know all about the cost of college and issues that surround that. It tends to be an elephant in every room where I speak. And you'll also know that the sticker price for Hendricks is high, right at about $58,000 a year, including tuition, fees, room, and board. But let me assure you, 100% of our students receive some form of financial aid. And the average award of scholarship and grant aid from Hendricks is about $35,000 a year. So this is before federal and state grants, money like the lottery scholarships here in Arkansas, as well as work study stack on. So you'll be able to do your math and see that all of our students here are paying a whole lot less than that official sticker price. The percentage of our students here at Hendricks who graduate with any debt, and the amount of debt that those students who have it carry with them are far below the national averages, and they're also below the averages here in the state of Arkansas. Now, all this might not seem quite like the Hendricks you remember from 50 years ago. It's a much bigger place with more buildings and options and opportunities and people than when you were students here. But there is, I want to assure you, still a lot that you will recognize about Hendricks today. First of all, Hendricks students remain extremely bright, the faculty remain demanding, and this remains a classic liberal arts college with academic rigor, high standards, and a strong reputation. You can read all the college rankings out there. Hendricks continues to do extraordinarily well. A couple years ago, when Forbes magazine named Hendricks the best university in Arkansas, the collective response of Hendricks grads around the state and around the nation was, duh, we knew that. In the U.S. News rankings this year, we are number 28 amongst the most innovative colleges in America, number 44 in the best value schools across the country, and number 76 among national liberal arts colleges. Hendricks continues to be the top-ranked liberal arts college, not just in Arkansas, but as a native Texan, I'm fond of saying, in the Lone Star State as well. And indeed, Hendricks is the highest-ranked liberal arts college in a broad swath of America, from the Gulf of Mexico up to Canada. We have also, of course, received other kudos, including the most beautiful college in Arkansas from Southern Living, which also got another duh out of alums, I think. And we are very proud of the fact that this last year we were ranked the top university or college food service in all of America. So there are a lot of really brainy schools out there in the United States. But what I really think sets Hendricks apart is the fact that we sustain such rigor and excellence in a small, intimate, caring, accepting, and I can tell you from my personal experience, truly welcoming community. Hendricks is not a big impersonal place, like so many colleges are these days. And it is not a ruthlessly competitive careerist kind of place either. People here truly care about each other. They have time for each other and celebrate our community and its spirit. I could keep you here for the rest of the afternoon with examples, but I will keep it short because I think y'all realize that Hendricks folks still have big hearts as well as big brains. There's one other part of the Hendricks character that I think is as strong today as it was back in the late 1960s, and that is the quality which I call being Hendrixy. That individuality, that independence and creativity and playfulness of mind and spirit that marks so many people who come to and graduate from this place. Hendricks has more than its fair share of free thinkers and big thinkers, committed people who do things resolutely and usually joyfully their own way. And our community accepts, supports, and affirms this insistent and endearing diversity of opinions and passions, vocations and avocations, obsessions and eccentricities. I take myself as Exhibit A in this case, a lifelong fan of Godzilla movies and other geeky pleasures who has never found myself more at home, heck, even celebrated for my craziness, than here on this campus. All that being said, I hope you will recognize today and through this weekend that no matter how much Hendricks may seem to have changed over the years, on some very fundamental level, it still remains the place where you arrived in 1965. The place where you shared some amazing experiences with people in this room, a place that has been with you through the 5 decades since your graduation, and a place that you have shaped and left a permanent mark on. Through the lives you have led, the careers you have pursued, the examples you have set, and the many ways you have given back to your alma mater. We are all so thrilled to have you with us today. We look forward to hearing from you now, and I look forward to meeting and talking with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Pamela Owen, a member of the class of 1982 and the Associate Vice President of Alumni and Constituent Engagement. We are thrilled you are all here with us today. Before we start our recognition of this year's inductees, we want to give a special thanks to the member of the class of 1968 reunion committee, and it's a large committee. If y'all could stand up, if you helped work on the committee parties, the parties for the class tonight, stand up so you can be recognized by your classmates. Oh, I'm sorry, I said 68, 69. Well, sorry. 69. That's right. Okay, it's time to induct the members of the class of 69, and I got it right that time, in the Half Century Club. And President Satsui will present the medallion signifying your membership into the Distinguished Club. Okay, I'm going to call your name, and please note we call the alumni in maiden name order. So if you would come forward, or raise your hand if you cannot come forward, and to receive your medallion. Once we have your medallion, please step to the microphone and share a very few remarks, or tell a very, very brief story or remembrance from your time at Hendricks. Because, just a math thing, there are 65 of you here, so if you spend 3 minutes, that's 3 hours. So very, very brief, okay? Thank you. Okay. Mary Ann Bader Stallings. Okay, we may have to wind our way. We have a full house, and this is a great thing, but it's kind of tricky getting around some there.
I will be very brief. I'm just delighted to be here today. Joe Stallings and I just celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. We finally have grandchildren. Our oldest daughter is a graduate of Hendricks also. And it's so much fun to be here today and try to recognize everybody. Thank goodness for name tags.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Jim Bennett. Oh, right here.
Oh, so convenient. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'll keep this brief. I really don't belong to this class. I arrived in fall of '64. So yes, I was here for the tornado, and I've got pictures on my phone. I was very shy, and I requested a single room. What I didn't know is that I was going to get a room the size of a closet, and that I was going to be the only freshman in Martin Hall. Now, when I left Hendricks, we graduated on Friday afternoon, June the 6th. I spent that day and the next day moving into an apartment in Little Rock. And on Monday morning, I started my job, and I never quit working until I retired. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Bill Black.
I left Hendricks after 2 years for the bigger and hopefully better campus of LSU. But Hendricks always has been college home. There were 3 academic buildings when I left here. There's at least twice that many now. But I still feel like it's college home, and I'm glad to see all of you for the first time in over 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Bonnie Blythe.
Oh, congratulations.
I came here from Japan. I graduated high school in Japan, and my parents wanted me to be at a school where I wouldn't feel like such a culture shock coming back to the United States. But indeed, it was a culture shock to come here. I didn't have a Southern accent, and everybody made fun of the way I talked, and I said, "It's you who have the accent." But I just really enjoyed my years at Hendricks and made lots of wonderful lifetime friends. Thanks.
Thank you, Bonnie. John Ballou.
Gosh, 50 years, where do they go? The most prominent memory in my mind of this campus is the night a phantom struck the pond just west of the underground library and set it on fire. And I take it that person is still at large. Other than that, every day was calm, uneventful, and full of wonderful memories.
Thank you, John. Sarah Braden Meredith.
During my senior year at Hendricks, I met the person that I've spent 50 wonderful years with. And I also made some wonderful friends that I cherish. Thank you.
Diane Brownlee.
Short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Porter Brownlee.
I had the good fortune to do 2 things. Met my future spouse, who spoke so eloquently a moment ago. And the other opportunity I had was to take advantage of Hendricks 3-2 plan with Columbia University. And that was an opportunity that not very many people get. And all I can really say about that opportunity was the contrast between the 2 schools is black and white. And this is the school that I call my alma mater.
Thank you, Porter. Paul Carter.
Well, congratulations. Thank you. And thank you. I'll always treasure my time at Hendricks. It made friends for a lifetime. Any of you who haven't been to a Hendrix College football game yet, it's great. I've only missed one home game since they've started up. Go Warriors.
Thank you, Paul, and the Warriors appreciate your plug. Let's see, David Chamness.
There were a couple of traditions that we did that are no longer politically correct. We wore our beanies, we had hazing, and then at the end of it, we had the mud pit. Those are some very treasured things. Wish you could still do those things. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Daryl Coker.
I don't know how to do a 3-minute speech. It's not in my repertoire anywhere. Lifer did remind me coming in here across the pedestrian bridge that if we had wandered in on this group our freshman year, we would have been with the class of 1895. I felt a whole heck of a lot better. Our freshman year was momentous. We all remember the hazing. We remember Dr. Yates' first class with those 50-cent words. But most important, we learned at basketball games with a full crowd between Paul Guerin and Joe Purvis that small, that soft, demure voices could drown out an entire arena full of people, and they always helped the officials with rules of the game. And if they were particularly enamored, they helped them with their family genealogy. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Tom Coleman.
Well, congratulations, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Looking out on the campus today, so much has changed. We were in the first group to go into Hardin Hall, and I still look at that area, and that's one of the few things that hasn't changed. A lot of it is different. I haven't been back much since we graduated. I've been out of state, but I retired and moved back to Mountain Home, so I'm glad to be able to come down and visit.
Thank you, Tom. Barbara Couch-Stefan.
I was never very good at public speaking because I spent my college years sequestered behind the organ bench, either in Green Chapel or at First Methodist Church with Mr. Robert McGill, R.I.P. But many friends that I made here have continued to be lifelong friends, and for that I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Susan Conceal-Deal. Council, I knew I was going to say it wrong. Sorry.
Congratulations.
That's okay. I haven't heard it in a while.
Okay.
I didn't realize the Half Century Club was such a big thing. I'd seen it on the donor list, but I didn't know about all the luncheon and all. Of course, the best thing is the friends. But I do have a distinction I think I probably don't share with anyone. My first year at Hendricks, I had a night class. And so I was gone all day, and then I came back to Rainey Hall after dark. And one night I was returning, and I'm sorry, I cut across the grass, but I was walking along, and then all of a sudden, the grass was here. I had just fallen into the first hole that was dug for VC Hall. I climbed out, nothing was hurt but my hose. That gives you an idea how long ago. Nobody saw me, so nobody knew till now.
Judy Cox Fraley. I'd like to say something really deep. Basically, I met my husband 46 years while I was at Hendricks. I made some wonderful friends, and we still get together and talk. And the experience I had at Hendricks, I would not give anything for. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Okay, I'm trying to get in alphabetical order. Okay, Jay Kritz.
Well, Daryl, I've never given a 10-minute speech, so I don't know. I'm really going to have to talk fast, I guess. Now, just a few things. Obviously, the greatest thing about Hendricks to me was I met my wife, Mary Ann. That resulted in 4 wonderful daughters and 8 great-grandchildren. 8 great-grandchildren, not great-grandchildren. And I came out of northeast Arkansas, OCL, of the metropolitan area. And one of my first, who laughed back there? Tommy Coleman and I lived together our senior year, but we're not talking about that. But I was kind of surprised. One of my first classes was Intro to Fine Arts with Dr. Helen Hughes. And I'm sitting in class the first day, and she stands up and she comes in and says, "I just get intoxicated by Shakespeare." And I go, wait a minute here. Then she passes an ashtray around the room and says, "Rub your hands over it, close your eyes. Can't you feel like you're riding in a car and it rolls up and down the hills?" And I thought, Joe, you're not in Kansas anymore. but it was the first step of my enjoyment and appreciation of classical music. So it did plant some positive seeds, and I had a great experience. And I'm always grateful to be and proud to be a Hendricks grad. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Linda Dawson Firstel.
This will be very short. I thanked my father every day for sending me to Hendricks. And the reason that I'm so thankful was being a member of the Hendrix College Choir under Bob McGill.
Thank you, Linda. Nancy Deaton Grady.
That's my now neighbor. And I have great memories of Hendricks, and would just say a big thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Bonda Deer Moyer.
Good to see you again. Thank you so much.
There are so many things that I would like to say about time here at Hendricks and things sense. But since we're constrained on time, I won't say all of those. Someone reminded me by mentioning the 3-3 when we transitioned to that. My daughter was here when they transitioned back from 3-3 to semesters. But I want to share one thing from my work experience. I served as a Christian educator for 7 years before I was ordained and became a pastor. And during that time, I did a lot of trips with youth, and after about a year and a half, I took a trip with senior citizens. And I thought they were worse than the junior highs about wanting to find a restroom. Anytime the bus would stop at a stop sign, they would start to hop off to look for a restroom. And tonight, this afternoon, when the 5-minute warning was given, and I saw so many classmates in the restroom, I realized that now I can understand why they acted like that on that trip.
Thank you, Bonda. Carol Dew Craig.
Well, at the risk of sounding like a commercial, I just consider my Hendricks education as a gift that has always been giving. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Jan Dice.
Hi, I'm Jan Dice. I live in Dallas, Texas with my husband, Larry Brazel. I'm a psychotherapist there in private practice with 1 foot in retirement. I have 1 son. He and his wife live on a ranch near Fort Worth where they have 6 children under the age of 11. So I will keep it brief. Going back to Jay's theme on Shakespeare, I so value the education here at Hendricks, and I'd like to give each of you a little gift, a quote from Shakespeare I think Dr. Moffat would approve of. I'm paraphrasing Sonnet 104. To me, my friend, you can never be old, for as you were when first we saw each other, such is your beauty still. So happy 50th to everyone.
Thank you, Jan. Kathy Finn Carmichael.
It is nice to see everybody and wonder about these faces, and knowing you're wondering about mine too. I'm one of 4 in my family and in my husband's family who's been here at Hendricks and graduated. My dad attended years ago. My husband's dad attended years ago. I attended, and then one of our sons attended and graduated from here years ago. So it's familiar territory. Feels sort of like home again. I had lots of fun, especially my freshman year, and wish the 2 who entertained me in that very serious first year away from home could be here. Tony Pierce and Kathy Merritt, 2 of my closest friends. They managed some fun times for us, from dressing up in all sorts of heavy makeup, short, mini skirty things we could get away with, fishnet stockings and go-go boots, and walking over town to Central Baptist pretending we were going to enroll. And I haven't mentioned that to too many people, but that was just some of the beginning of the fun. And I enjoyed that first year with their good, fun personalities. It's good to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Tom Fomby.
Might not come over here. Please do. I'm not tall enough for this, Tom. Thank you. Congratulations.
Well, really, one of my claims of fame is that
I was part of the recruitment of Bill Sitsui to this college. I think we're very fortunate to have him as our president. He was my dean at Southern Methodist University. I got a call from a recruiter saying, "What is this fellow like?" And I said, "He likes Godzilla." But he is of the spirit that really Hendricks has, I think, and that's the adventurous spirit. I was fortunate enough to meet my wife here. I especially enjoyed playing basketball on the basketball team with Bill and other colleagues, going to Palermo on occasion. We had a good time, and of course, Purvis and Guerin, I will always remember for their enthusiasm. One just note, the mathematics training here has done me very, very well. When I went to University of Missouri at Columbia, which I was named a distinguished alum, there I made a 4.0 in the math-intensive classes, and it was because of my preparation in mathematics here. I was tutoring PhD students there in mathematics. So I'm just saying this is a very, very good place to prepare for a graduate education. But again, my claim to fame is Bill Sitsui.
Thank you, Tom. Bill Fraley.
My wife of 46 years, Judy Cox Fraley, who spoke just a minute ago, she and I are a retired military family whose life is now centered around our local Methodist church in Sherwood, where Judy is in her 30th year as the music programs director. We have two sons who both live in the Central Arkansas area, one of which, Dr. Patrick Fraley, is a 2000 graduate, also of Hendricks College. It's in the family, blood. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Dee Graham.
Well, unfortunately, I only spent 2 years here out of a 3-year undergraduate history. Those 2 years, even though I've had a very exciting life, those were the best 2 years of my life. I can honestly say that, and I've said it repeatedly many, many times in my life. And the friends that I've made here, the group of us in Rainey Hall, they've remained friends all my life. They're some of my closest friends. I very much thank my parents for sending me here. It was one of the nicest gifts they ever gave me. And I feel extremely grateful to have lived long enough to get this.
Thank you, Dee. Doug Graydon.
You got a hike today. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you so much. Well, I have a question. When you think of all of the organizations and institutions that you've been involved with over the past 50 years, can you think of any one of those that has done as much for the development of young minds and characters as Hendricks College? I can't. I've been trying for 50 years, and I have not found one. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Paul Guerin.
There we go. Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I don't usually get nervous when I'm going to speak. One thing I usually remember about Hendricks was orientation and how intense it was. And we were required to learn the names of upperclassmen. We had a test on this, and they came before us in the gymnasium, and we wrote down information, and we were required to speak to them on campus. And if we had been introduced to somebody, we were required to remember who they were, lest we should have to do some push-ups or something. It was pretty intense. And then it ended. And it was like night and day. All of a sudden, everybody was friendly toward us. And we knew most everybody on campus's name. And it was a friendly campus. We always spoke to everybody as we went by and called people by name. And I knew the guy who stole my umbrella. I had marked it with a magic marker. The top part was red. And on that rainy day, I chased him and got him. Bill, that's my umbrella. Oh, is this yours? I'm sorry. I thought it was mine. Well, it wasn't. Okay. It was mine. I mentioned at the table that I can truthfully say I graduated in the upper 3/4 of my class. And I didn't really find a career right away. And I did a whole bunch of things along the way, and I was 55 before I ever had a job that felt like a career. I had some good jobs. I had some fun jobs. And I never worried about things. But I became a school teacher. I got recruited by the All-Red School District, the smallest K-12 district in the whole state, a little bitty country school with 105 students. And they needed a teacher the following year, and they recruited me and put me in this special government program, they called it. Project-based learning. I was a teacher's aide. I was a teacher's aide. And I just let go and did it and ended up teaching a lot of stuff and had a good time and came to Conway in 2005 and taught physical science at Conway High School till I retired. And now I read and write and dig in the dirt, and I see lots of people from Hendricks all the time, and it's an honor and a privilege to have been here. And that's about enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. David Guthrie.
You are looking the part today, sir. Oh. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. From our orientation, we were taught how to escort young ladies. The man always walks on the outside, and I still do that today. And I can remember one time when we were complaining about the comparative social life of our compatriots up at the University of Arkansas compared to what we were down here, and we were moaning and complaining about it, and the English major said, Hendricks, regardless of what you think of, Hendricks is may not be a great place to be at. It's only temporary, but it is a wonderful place to be from. And my experience has proven that quite accurate. One other quick point is that, as you may remember, these banquets used to be over in the old Hewlin Hall. The student dining facility was right next to it. We could look through the window and see these spacious spreads, and I think we all left our face and fingerprints on those windows as we looked in. But it has been a great experience, and of course, it's great to be back and see so many people. Thank you to the staff, Mr. President.
Thank you, David. Wade Hall.
Well, I ended up teaching school for about 43 years. And that would be a fact that would amaze anybody on Boardwalk, or probably Mecca, or any of my professors for that matter. But in the course of doing that, from time to time you would have to write letters of recommendation, for students. And anytime I had a letter of recommendation for Hendricks, I would spend a lot of extra time with it, because this is a special place, a very special place. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade. Phil Hathcock.
I've always been grateful for good memories, but when I returned to Conway to be pastor of First United Methodist Church and looked out in the congregation and saw many of my old faculty members, I was grateful for their poor memories.
Jen Henry Fayed.
Well, I'm going to take up some other people's seconds, okay? This has been a great experience for me. First of all, thank you to the college for having this event. When I told people in North Carolina I was coming back to Conway, Arkansas, of course they thought it was Conway, South Carolina, North Carolina, wherever, and they said, "Why are you going back?" And I went, "Well, Hendricks is a special place." So no one else understood what this could mean to us. Second, Pam, Jenny here today? She's right there. Oh, there you are. Thank you all so much in the alumni office. They answered a lot of my emails, my hectic phone calls. They were responsible for so much of what has happened today. And to the reunion group that stood earlier, they were so supportive and helpful. Hendricks will always hold a special spot in my heart. First of all, I entered as a freshman, I think it was in September after Labor Day. I had planned to go to Henderson because I didn't get into Hendricks, but all my family had graduated from Henderson, so that was kind of normal. But they all decided I shouldn't go to Henderson, I should go to Hendricks. So 2 weeks before school started, Frida Lou called my mother and dad, didn't call me, now that's times have changed, and told them that she had a place for the next 10 on the waiting list to live in a cottage. We called it Corner House, and it's still there today. And a lot of us are here. I think of the 10 girls, I think I counted maybe 6 of us. Well, but they wanted my mother and dad to come up and see the area, the house, and it would be well protected because it was not on campus. Well, you all know who protected it. Well, that was a good introduction to come to Corner House because it was small enough. I'm going to give you some statistics, since you like statistics. We were the largest class at that point to come to Hendricks. We had 300 freshmen. Now, 40% of us, not including myself, came from the major metropolitan areas. Little Rock, North Little Rock, Fort Smith, Van Buren, Pine Bluff, Texarkana, and Hot Springs. 3% were from out of state. And like Bonnie said, some came from, and Shirley Hart came from another country at that time. 5% of us, and I'm included in this, came from towns less than 750. I felt like a fish out of water. I mean, I sat there with people who graduated from Central High or Fort Smith high schools. I mean, it was very intimidating. I had no languages. I just had the basic 4 classes every year. But I knew I was in the right place. Orientation for me was unbelievable. I'd never done anything like this before in Thornton, Arkansas. And we had the 10 freshman girls, of course, we didn't have but 2 upperclassmen, and they were our residents. So we went to the all-senior dorm. And you talking about, not hazing, it was not that rough, but poor Libby Rockwood, sister was a senior, and Libby, they picked on her all the time. So the rest of us, but we came back to the corner house after the orientation meetings and bonded because we had the enemy, the common enemy with those senior girls, and a couple of them are here now. But friendships, I think we've all mentioned about friendships, how important they have been to us all our lives. Yes, we are very grateful for the education that we received here. I didn't know how much different it was because I'd never been to another college. But I did get my master's at the U of A, and when I was approved to take 3 classes in one summer term and I got the syllabus for all 3, I went, I can't do all of this in 5 weeks. Well, I realized after getting into the classes, it wasn't all that hard. Last year, I attended the David, my husband's 50th, and there was a theme that ran through everybody's speech. Theirs was the tornado. But I felt like for us, we came as freshmen. Vietnam was just becoming a bigger deal. And I can remember the guy saying, well, it'll be over by the time we get there. We don't have to worry about the draft. Each year, it was a little bit different discussion. And by the time we were seniors, all the guys were just really getting very nervous. But I think that was our thread that was common to all of us, worrying about that war. Our lives have changed tremendously since graduation, but I am excited to hear that Hendricks continues to excel in educating young people in many different ways, and that I met a young man yesterday looking for Murphy and trying to get into the Murphy house, and he was so polite, and he stopped wherever he was going, and he came and helped me get in the Murphy building because he was going to use his card. And I went, you have to have cards now to get into the building, so times have changed. But again, I want to thank everybody on the 69 group for coming and participating. It's been great touching base with you, even if it's by sending me a check. Last, but I have one invitation for the 1969 classmates and their guests. Nancy Grady is hosting a get-together tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I sent emails out to people who I knew their email address. But if you are here and you're going to be in town tomorrow at 1, Nancy's, you can talk to us after today's luncheon, and we'd love to see you again. We want to make this one weekend we catch up on 50 years of information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Janet Hudson Showalter.
It's wonderful to see so many of you. I would have to echo everyone who met their spouse at Hendricks, as I did. We've been married almost 48 years. And the second most wonderful experience would be choir with Robert McGill. Wish we could have a choir reunion. Somebody think about doing that. Our eldest son attended Hendricks. We have 4 grandchildren. The youngest is 8 months old. So if you want to feel younger or maybe older, try that.
Thank you, Janet. James Isom.
Congratulations, James. Thank you, sir.
Of the many things I remember about Hendricks, what I remember most is the great, great faculty that we were exposed to. I'd like to dedicate my medallion to one, Dr. Scheidler. Now, Dr. Scheidler had a reputation among the science and biology people. When you went to fill out your class schedule, you tried to avoid his classes. You know. But I'm here to rehabilitate that image. He did me a huge favor, and I know all of you had some similar experiences where a particular faculty member did something for you. It was totally unexpected, but I'm here to get this medallion because of Dr. Scheidler. So I would like to thank him for having such a heart of gold. Dr. Scheidler.
Judy Jeffrey.
Well, I came as a junior, and from the stories I hear, I'm not sorry, I missed orientation. But I met some wonderful people. I had some wonderful roommates, and I was accepted here, just like I'd been here the whole time. Thank you.
Austin Jennings.
Thank you, Pam, Dr. Sutsui. I sure am glad I met Margaret. And our only child is a Hendricks grad. It's wonderful to be back.
Thank you, Austin. Catherine Kennedy Jefferson.
I can't believe I'm getting this after I made a D+ in biology under Mr. Raymond, and I was grateful for that. I just want to say I was a corner house girl because Hendricks, the year we were freshmen, did not have dorm space. And 2 weeks before, I was going to SMU, and 2 weeks before, Frida Lou called, and we always referred to her as Frida Lou, not to her face. But I would like, and it was a wonderful opportunity for all of us to be a freshman at Hendricks that year. And I'd like my corner house girls to stand up to show you there's quite a few of us here today. Because if we hadn't had that, we would not have been at Hendricks. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Keith Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. What Catherine didn't tell you, we were really sweating whether or not she was going to pass the swimming test. Remember, you couldn't graduate unless you passed the swimming test. So I want to make a few comments. I echo everybody else's comments when they talked about the friendly atmosphere at Hendricks and how special it is. And I don't know if it's just our class or what, but it's like driving up today and seeing the oaks on the berms. It just felt like you were coming home. And so it is really, really special. I just want a couple things. And Tommy mentioned this, when I went to grad school, that was the first opportunity I had to kind of judge what my education at Hendricks, how good it was. And what I found was, academically, the transition was nominal. I mean, we knew how to go to class, take notes, study, and pass exams, and answer tough questions. So it really was a fantastic foundation. Socially, it was a little bit different. Cornell had beer on tap in the student union, so that was kind of an interesting transition. And again, much like the comments about Dr. Scheidler, Art Johnson in biology was just a phenomenal individual and educator, and he was really primarily responsible for my career and going further in the biological sciences, and I am forever indebted to Art Johnson. So professors do make a difference, and Hendricks is so lucky to have people like Art Johnson and Dr. Scheidler. It's just absolutely terrific. One of the things, and when you're in places other than Arkansas, people that are not familiar with Hendricks, it's like, well, you know, where is that? And it's like, well, it's halfway between Toadsuck Ferry and Pickles Gap. If that, yeah. So I just want to make a couple comments about some really great memories. I lived in Couch Hall, which is, of course, as you remember, famous for Skid Row. So I won't go into some of those, but we had an open house, and Randy Goodrem was in our dorm, and Randy is one of the most talented people I've ever known, just incredible. And we had a meeting to discuss what we were going to do for the open house. And Randy said, well, you know, I've got this electronic organ. I can just set it up in the lobby, and I'll play while the guests come through. So, and I can't remember who wrote, there was an article in the student newspaper the next day about the Couch Hall open house, and which created some controversy because the article said that Randy Goodrem entertained the guest with his little organ. Yeah, it's too bad Randy's not here. You know, the other thing, and Linda mentioned this, even though I was a biology major, my senior year, and this is one of the opportunities I think that Hendricks affords, is I was just so impressed with the Hendrix College choir. Especially, they used to do that spiritual about how God was going to build up Science Hall. And I thought, that must be a good organization. But one of the participating in the choir, and there were a lot of people here that were in the choir, probably lobbied to help me get in. But you would, on the choir trips, you would stay with people in the local community. And I'll never forget, and Rodney, I don't know if you were with me, but we were with in some home where their son, who was about 12 years old, was he played the accordion, and they thought he was a prodigy, right? And they basically duct taped us to the chairs while he played Lady of Spain, 3 different versions, and I thought, oh man. But the choir was, for me as a science student, was really a tremendous experience, and one of the things that I feel indebted to Hendricks for, to have those types of opportunities. One other thing, I did take French, a year of it. I couldn't take more because of the labs in chemistry, and you just couldn't work it in. What I found, though, was I didn't get to France for 10 years. It turns out that being able to say, I have a green pencil box, doesn't get you very far in France. But so anyway, it's absolutely fantastic to be here. I hope I can remember everybody's name. I'm at that stage in my career where I spend a lot of time either trying to find a bathroom or try to remember somebody's name. So, thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Betty Lewis Cohen.
Two very brief things. I really have two medals here. This one belonged to my father. Wow. He was, I think, class of 1916 or 1917. I'm not sure. I know he had his 50th reunion while I was at Hendricks, so sometime in that time period. Yes, I've saved it. Yes, I'm wearing it. I'm very proud of him. We're a Hendricks family. And just the medallion has changed slightly, not tremendously. Hendricks campus has changed tremendously, not slightly. But Hendricks is still Hendricks, and I'm very proud of it. Second thing, very, very quickly, I always like to say Hendricks taught me to think. And I got out of school with a degree in music, for which I am most grateful and has informed many of my career choices through the years. I got out of graduate school with a master's in music, and I thought, what have I done? So I have made my living and my way through life in other fields. In fact, I spent 25 years at UAMS running a continuing medical education program. Now, how does that translate to music? But through it all, Hendricks has been the constant, and I'm very, very grateful to Hendricks.
Thank you, Betty. Dickie Lunsford.
I'm very grateful for my Hendricks education, and the memories of those 4 years live on, and most importantly, the friendships over the last 50 years. Y'all are wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dickie. Bob Lyford.
Well, since I gave up most of my time to Jen, I have only two things to say. First, I'm glad these are being given out alphabetically instead of by GPA. I'd still be sitting in the chair over there for a little while longer, I think. And the second thing is, you can't trust anything that Darrell Coker says about me, because what I told him was the people that we saw here at a reunion when we were freshmen in 1966, this time of year, would have been born in 1895. They weren't in the class of 1895. So totally discredit anything for the rest of the day that Darrell says about me.
Thank you, Bob. Virginia Lynn Kennedy.
Hello. I think the biggest thing that Hendricks did for me as a teacher was to save me from elementary school children for 36 years. When I came to Hendricks, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to study, but I think that I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and I loved small children and babies, and at that time there had been some research about FLES program, foreign language in the elementary schools. And so that's what I thought I wanted to do. I really wanted to major in Spanish, but there was not a major here at Hendricks in Spanish. So I took the basic courses the first 2 years, and I had taken 4 years of Spanish in high school. So while I was here, Miss Lois Swisher came around, and the Spanish major was begun. So that saved my life, and since there was no FLES program here, I got a bachelor's degree in Spanish and took the education for high school courses, and I became a high school teacher of Spanish. So I thank Hendrix College and all the professors here, because then I taught young people who could and did mostly listen to reason. So thanks very much to Hendrix and all the professors.
Thank you, Virginia. Tom Major.
Oh, hi, everybody. So, you sit out here in your chair and you think about, okay, what am I going to say? And, all I can think about is my father. I don't know if they still do this, but when I came, you got free tuition, or you got 50% because you're on staff, and you got 50% because you're a preacher, right? So I got to come for free. So, except for, that was only tuition, so I had to pay for all the other things, right? So I lived in the dorm for a while. So, Hendrix had a great impact on me, but I think my father had a great impact on Hendrix. I think there's a lot that you see here, that you've seen, that he's been a big part of, and I'm just grateful to be part of that. And I'm grateful for this, and I accept this in his memory. And I have to say my mother contributed a lot as well, so I have to mention her too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Nancy Mae Thomby.
Jen, if you think it's hard coming from Thornton, Arkansas, try coming from Rosebud, Arkansas. And having a name like Nancy Mae and rooming with Nancy Wood. We had a little thing about that. The other thing I want to mention is you've heard from Tom already, so there's not much more that I can add because he always talks all the time. But you'll notice he has about 10 gray hairs.
Thank you, Nancy. Donald McDonald.
I've just got three things to say. One, I'm not going to talk about how great Hendrix is because everybody's done that. It's been up here. The other thing is that we are now the answer to the question when we went from 65 to 69, because we used to walk around campus and go, who are these old people? We are those old people. And the third thing is, I'm not really sure I could ever get in the school now. I know I couldn't get out.
Thank you, Donald. Jim McNeese.
Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
I feel really fortunate to be here today. I survived 3 years on Skid Row. My life after Hendrix, I've been asked many times where I went to college. And I've always felt very fortunate to be able to say that I went to a small liberal arts college in Conway, Arkansas, called Hendrix College. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Lee McQueen.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Dr. As some of y'all know, I was only here for 1 year, and that's thanks to the dynamic leadership of a fellow by the name of Dean / Colonel Lee Schilling. And after a conversation about a fellow that spent the night in the library and got caught by Mac, who did turn the light out, but I never heard the hammer go back. But anyhow, I probably would have done all right, except I showed up and explained to Dr. Schilling I got one of the 2 A's in Dr. Ellis's class. And he explained to me at that time, Lee, I don't know where you're going to be next year, but it probably needs to be someplace other than Hendricks. And that was nice. I didn't realize it, but there were a lot of average people to fill the bell-shaped curve at the University of Arkansas. We didn't have any here. Good to see y'all again.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. Paul Meredith.
I'm a proud graduate of the Diane Brownlee School of Public Speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Ron Metcalf.
Folks, congratulations. Thank you, sir.
This is the first event of this nature I have attended, and I was not prepared to speak to you today. And I started thinking about Hendricks and what it's meant to me. And I grew up in a small town, Charleston, Arkansas. And it just happened that the local attorney was a fellow named Dale Bumpers, who was the president of the school board. Then in the mid-50s, Charleston had 2 problems. It was a poor community, number one, and number two, it had a bunch of two-year teacher degree people, and the State Board of Education was getting ready to close the school. And so Bumpers had graduated from Northwestern, and he pushed the school board to integrate, and the black community rode on the same school bus that I rode on, and we were already working with them. Hall Hay did work during the summer. You know, they were my best friends. But anyway, so Bumpers hires some really top administrative people, and he's a devout Methodist. And it happens that he hires Bill Johnson, a Hendricks graduate, for a basketball coach, a history teacher, and Charles Tadlock, a football coach, who recently I saw was inducted into the Hendricks Hall of Fame for football players. And so they had me from the 6th grade on through the 12th grade. And when I was not a real coordinated child, and my mother was 5'3", my dad was 5'10". We lived out 5 miles out in the country. My mother didn't drive. And they just kind of took to me. Neither one of them, they were both married, neither one of them had children. It was not uncommon for me to spend the night with them or them to take me home or what. They had no idea that my mother had these 3 brothers that were all 6'4", 250, big guys. They were just looking at my father, 5'10", mother, 5'3". They had no idea that I would ever grow out of this clumsy state that I was in. But they were Hendricks people through and through, and as fine a men as I ever knew. They were almost like a father figure. And so finally, I developed enough that, about the 11th and 12th grade, and I had other places to go, but I'll never forget Coach Johnson telling me that I didn't want to go to the University of Arkansas to play football because Lloyd Phillips wore a hairnet in the dormitory. And I don't know if that story is true or not. I think it was his way of just guiding me along the way. But once I got here, and you've got to understand that Coach Johnson was brilliant, and I had him for 6 straight years in some type of history course, and we had a pop test, a 10-point pop test every day for 6 years. And so I walk into Dr. Yates' class, and I go, oh, now I understand. And so at the end of, I'll never forget going over to talk to Dr. Yates. We were playing basketball, and I was curious what grade I had made in his class. And the trick question, Bob, was how did Pliny the Elder die? You remember that? It was on the last page in a footnote. It was a volcano. But anyway, so Dr. Francis Christie was everything that, to me, that an academic person should be. He was just so down to earth. He just knew so much. He was just so well educated. And my teammates on the basketball team, we should have done better. We knew we should, but it just didn't work out for us. And but I wouldn't change anything for the world. You know, and wherever I've gone as a lawyer, became a lawyer. Bumpers gave me great advice, by the way. Before I went to law school, I said, do you think I could become a lawyer? And he said, oh, yeah, that's no problem. So I go see him when he's governor. I said, well, where do I go now? What are we going to do? He said, well, you need to move to Northwest Arkansas. I didn't do that. I went to Fort Smith, and that was terrible. And my first wife said, we ought to buy Walmart stock. And that was a great idea. Of course, we didn't have any money at that time. But anyway, wherever I have gone, whatever I've done, and I've traveled quite a bit as a lawyer, every person that's either gone to or graduated Hendricks has been glad to see me. They want to know, talk to me. They want to know if they can help me. And it's just been a wonderful experience. There's only been one person in all these 50 years, and I'm not sure about that guy. He was a judge, and I think he may have had a little bit something wrong with him. But it's just been unbelievable to see other Hendricks people as you travel throughout the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Mary Ann Mosley Kritz.
When I graduated from Hendricks, I was the third person in my family to graduate from Hendricks. Today, there have been 13 people in my family who have graduated from Hendricks. I've always been very proud that I went to Hendricks. I was always glad to say that that was the school that I attended, and I am grateful for that time, grateful to my parents, and grateful to the school for today. Thank you.
Bill Niven.
Just need to say a couple of things. Two of experiences at Hendricks. One, I met my wife for 50 years this summer. I met her back then, not this summer. But we've been married for 50 years. Great education at Hendrix College. I started off my freshman year with a 4.0. I had a 1.9 first semester and 2.1 second semester. And I did graduate, but I appreciate Hendrix College. I appreciate this event. It's been terrific to see all these people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Becky Paulk Sanders.
Sorry about that. Congratulations. Thank you.
I was keeping up with everybody, and I thought I had another page or two. I didn't know what to say when it was announced that we would say something, and I panicked. because I do not do well in front of people, even though I did teach school. That was not the same thing. Adults, I can't do it. But I've heard a lot of things today, and I wanted to respond to some of them. I wanted to major in Spanish, so I was going to the U of A. Well, my mother and my father and my older brother and sister all graduated from Hendricks. And there was a lot of upset in the house that I wasn't going there, because I also had cousins and an aunt that had all been there. So I agreed to go for 2 years, and then I would transfer to the U of A. Well, as Virginia Kennedy told you, after 2 years, they instituted a Spanish major, so I stayed. And I want to tell you one thing I remember from my freshman year. We had to learn the handbook. Now, I don't know if the girls had a different handbook than the boys, but my handbook said, if there's a couple in the parking lot out in front of the dorm, they must both be in the front seat, and their head and shoulders has to be above the back of the seat. Now, that was my freshman year. By my senior year, I could stay out till 1 or 2 o'clock. If somebody would come down and unlock the door, you would tell them, I will be back at 1. And they had to be down there to unlock the door and let you in. So Hendricks has been a very progressive college. We have made a lot of progress. So, and I enjoyed all of my teachers, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name. Maybe y'all will help me. He was an older gentleman, and he taught British literature. Walter Moffat. He was in school with my parents, and they graduated in 30 and 31. Actually, my father graduated from Hendrix College. It was that for 1 year. And they knew Coach, Coach Grove, yes, he would always stop me and talk to me. And Tom Major, I think I've told you this, your dad would stop me in the middle of the campus and start speaking Spanish to me. Well, I was like a deer in headlights. I kind of knew what he was saying. In fact, I did know what he was saying, but I just panicked because I didn't know what to say back. So, but I do have a lot of good memories of Hendricks. Plus, I made my parents very happy that I completed the thing. And then the grandkids came along, my sisters and mine and my brothers, and nobody went to Hendricks. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Becky. Paula Pitts Johnson.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Well, I will echo what so many of you all have said, but I do have one special memory that perhaps is somewhat unique. I spent my 4 years at Hendricks either in the music hall or in the chemistry lab, because I was a music major 1 year and a chemistry major for 3. And I had a lot of makeup to do. So I never got to any of those business classes or really any of the history classes either. I decided at the end of my senior year, I took a computer programming course that one of the math teachers started at Hendricks that year. That was the first time he taught it. And it was so intriguing that I thought, this is what I want to do for my career. And how do you translate chemistry or music to computers? But at that time, I thought, well, there may be a way. So even though I had not had any business courses, I went to see Dr. Allred. He didn't know me from Adam, but he welcomed me to his office. We visited a while. I said, Dr. Allred, if you know of anything in the line of computer programming, I'd like to know. I'm interested in that. So he said, okay, let me see. In a few days, he called me on the student phone and said, Paul, come over to the bookstore, Student Union, and meet somebody. Well, it's on the front of our booklet. That picture on the front of the booklet is the way the bookstore Student Union looked in those days. It was a combined space. And I sat down with the recruiter from Southwestern Bell and Dr. Allred and had an interview for a job right there. And in a few days, I got a call from, his name was Clovis Richardson, and he said, we'd like for you to come and look at this job. So I did. I said yes, and thanks to the wonderful professors who didn't even know us on campus but were willing to help, I had a career for 22 years with Southwestern Bell, and I'm very grateful for the effort here at school. So,
Thank you, Paula. Linda Pondexter Chesterfield.
Well, there she is. Congratulations, Liz. I'm so thrilled about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speaking of culture shock, I had never heard of Hendricks College. My mother nor my grandmother went to school at Hendricks College, but there was a man named James Major who came to Hope, Arkansas, because Dr. Steele was intent upon the desegregation of this institution. And so Emily Johnson and I were recruited, and here I am. It was indeed a culture shock because I had never gone to school with white people. My little cocoon was Henry Clay Yerga High School in Hope, Arkansas. And it was very difficult because the textbooks that we had were sent over from the white school and had 5 names in them already before we got them, and that was by law. I am just so delighted that I made it. And I am even more delighted to have my big brother here, Ricky Pondexter, and my wonderful husband, Emory Chesterfield. Met him later in life because this was just not a plowing ground for me as far as husbands was concerned. But thank you to so many of you. And I thank this institution because they were very deliberate in making sure that it worked. We were the only African Americans who could try on clothing in the store. We're the only African Americans who could go into the lobby. It was as if our pictures had been passed around the whole town. And some of you didn't know that, but you could not try on shoes, you could not try on clothing at that time. But Hendricks made sure that we could. I have 2 nieces who have since matriculated here, graduated. One's a doctor, one's an attorney. So the Hendricks experience is alive and well. But thank you to my classmates, those of you who made it easier. And when I see you, I know of the love. I thank Buddy when I decided to get into politics and run for the school board, and people weren't crazy about a unionist being on the school board. That was supposed to be for business folks. Buddy said, leave her alone. And if Buddy said, leave her alone, that meant leave her alone. And when I was honored at SMU, there was Tommy Fumby, there was Joe Goin. That's the way it is in this institution. It is a great place from which to be. And as I go forward in my career in the Arkansas State Senate, I challenge each of you to remember that it is still incumbent upon each and every one of you to maintain your connectivity to the community. There is too much talent in this room to say, I'm retired now. There is entirely too much talent. You need to volunteer in some of our schools to make a difference. You need to volunteer to come to the Senate and to the House and say, this is stupid. Okay? Thank you so very, very much. I thank God, too, because I was not ever sure that 50 years later I'd be here. You have been absolutely wonderful. Bill, keep up the good work. It's good to see you every now and then. And I thank you again so very, very much. And I want to thank two women who were scared to death for me to come but said yes. And that was my grandmother, Ophelia, and my mom, Ernestine. And I want to thank Paul Guerin. I want to thank Joe Purvis, Cookie Jones, for always making sure I had a ride home. Thank you.
Don Price.
I didn't know we had talk today either. And I looked down the list and I said, oh, good, they're doing it in alphabetical order. That'll give me time to think of something to say. And then I noticed I was behind Linda Pondexter. But I remember, or at least as my memory is right now, I think I remember the first day I ever set foot on this campus. Bill mentioned it earlier, the day of the hurricane. I live through hurricanes now, the day of the tornado. It was senior day at Hendrix College in the spring of 1965, and a group of us from Searcy had retreated to a car in the parking lot in front of the old admin building. And while we were sitting there, it started hailing, and I really mean hailing. Rodney was in the same car. He can vouch for me. But we sat there, and then suddenly it stopped. And I thought, well, that's great. I knew nothing about weather. So suddenly it stopped, and I thought, okay, now we can go someplace. And then it immediately started again. Of course, the eye of the tornado had just gone over the parking lot. And we went up, when it was over, we went up to the old Union, and we were there looking around. Everything was dark, and one guy that was with us, you'll be grateful to know he didn't get in, was asking them if they were still going to have the dance. But but that was my first Hendricks, first time I set foot on this campus. I came anyway, and somehow, and the somehow would be what would be uttered by many of my professors, somehow I graduated. Just in time to go talk to my local draft board, who'd sent me a 1A notice during finals, and about a month later, I was in the Navy, and the only way I could figure out to get out of the Navy was to go back to college. I got out 5 weeks early, but it was worth it. I'm still in college. I've never left. I'm not good at 3-minute speeches, but I think my lecture would be over by today if I'd actually given it. So this place changed my life. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Diane Qualls White.
Okay, I'm one of those that wants to tell a funny story, but I can't think of one. Looking at everybody, I know there's a lot of stories we need to tell, but it doesn't come to me. Hendricks was wonderful for me. I loved my years here. I really liked that we all stayed here on the weekends. We didn't go home. We stayed the whole time, and it just made it was home for those 3 or 4 years, whatever. I want to say thank you to Hendricks, the professors, and to all of you, and especially I want to thank my roommate, Nancy Deaton, for letting me have a beauty salon in our dorm room.
Thank you, Diane. Libby Rockwood Casbier.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Well, my brother and sister preceded me at Hendricks. I wasn't going to come, but I did. Rick was a rebel rouser, and Nancy was nice. I guess I was kind of in between. The one thing Rick taught me before I came, he said, Lib, you have to learn the alma mater to the tune of Brown-Eyed Handsome Man. Can you all sing it? Can you do that? I don't know. Anyway, that helped me get through orientation, along with my orientation leader and Greg, who's here somewhere, or was. There she is. And anyway, I thank Hendricks for the years we were here, and all of you. We're so fortunate to have the memories and the education. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. Margaret Sanders Jennings.
Thank you.
George Shepard.
Oh, there's so many things, wonderful stories, but I got a little challenge at Kathy Finn talking about family and all this other family at Hendricks. I'm not going to try to count all the cousins and uncles and aunts and everybody, but we do, my wife Sandra, class 68, Sandra Bayless, and I do have a couple of, we're both third generation. Both of our grandparents went to predecessor institutions. And all 4 of our parents were at Hendricks, overlapped, so they all knew each other. And so before we were even gleams in their eyes, they knew each other. And I have yet to meet anybody, any other couple, who's all 4 of their parents were at the college, you know, where they were. One little memory I wanted to share. It seemed like it was going to be a really kind of exciting thing to have a new underground library at the college. What I didn't know was what the personal cost was going to be for us. Mr. Brownlee and I were roommates. There were 3 of us. We were on the north end of Martin Hall in the basement. And so it was pretty warm a lot of days. We had to have the windows open, which are right at ground level. And there were all these earth movers going back and forth, bringing dirt out of the hole and stirring up dust. And then when it would rain, we had to go, there were kind of boardwalks in order to get to the cafeteria or anywhere. It was really, the underground library, that was a great experiment, but there were some parts that weren't all that great for us. But thank you, Hendricks.
Thank you, George. Rodney Showalter.
When we get closer to the end of the alphabet, here I am, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm delighted to be a Hendricks graduate. I will be till the day I die. I met Janet here, and I think she's already given you about our family. But I was one of those who majored in one area and had a great love of another, but I earned a living in one and also had the love, and that's what brought Janet and me together, and that was music, and Bob McGill was a great influence on our lives. Thank you, Hendricks.
Billy Singleton Curry.
You have no idea how hard it was to get from Dermot, Arkansas to here in 1965. Not only driving, but just getting here. But there was one little lady who was a visionary who let all of us Southeast Arkansas folks have a chance to come to this Institute of Higher Learning, and her name's on that dorm right over there, Ruth Vesey. She's the reason I got to come here. She's the reason lots of us got to come here. And I still, when I walk by there, I just almost want to salute or pray one or the other when I walk by. But I got to meet all of y'all, got to meet the father of my children, had a great time when I was here, cheered for you guys on the basketball court, and just had a good education that supported me for most of my life. My son and his wife are graduates, and his best friend was Merle Baker's son, that was my husband's best friend. My daughter came here, and she and Beth Storm did a whole lot of running around together when they were here. It's a great place. I'm honored. Thank you.
Dad and my mother met here at Hendricks, and they got married. Our oldest daughter is a Hendricks graduate also. But thinking about some things that have happened with some of the wild and crazy guys that were in our crew, there was a trip to New Orleans. Oh, they're squirming now, okay? You too, all right. The ones that might have to help me remember who all went. It was Dickie, Coker, Lyford, Valines, and me, okay? Where we had any money to go to New Orleans, I didn't have any money. I don't know, maybe I stole some or something, but we got to spring break at New Orleans. We were all pretty much out of money. We had a little bit left. And then Lyford found his friends when we were out on Bourbon Street. And his friends said we should come over and spend the night with them, okay? It was a little bit strange because Coker spent the night in his car. I spent the night pushing Buddy Valines, the heater, off of me to keep from burning up. And none of us got anything. Well, Buddy got some sleep. I didn't get any sleep. Nobody got any sleep. So we got home. Nobody was put in jail, although we probably should have been. And we had a good time. All right.
Thank you.
Linda Stevens Storm.
I love you guys. Oh, thank you. Good to be here. Steve Storm and I had a wonderful time at Hendricks, and I say hello for all of you from him. Man, I miss that man. But what did we take away with us? Friends for life, fairly good education. Some of us had lower GPAs, but all of us learned an awful lot about life. So for that, thank you.
John Stroop.
Linda Poindexter, thank you for what you do. Coker, I called Darrell, several weeks after I talked to Coach Courtway, and he said, I sure would like for you to come to Hendricks College. And I said, Coach, I don't have a car, and I don't have any money. And I had lost my dad early in high school. And my aunt graduated from Hendricks in 1917. Wow. My mom's oldest sister. I was the next in line. And I guess the best part is where the place it put me in after we graduated. And I'm still mad at Coker, because I eventually ended up in Houston as my first sales territory. We were having a lot of fun, and he leaves again. And he's had, obviously, a fabulous career in the Little Rock area. I live in north central Oklahoma, have a wonderful wife, 6 step-grandchildren, and she's heard about Conway and Hendricks for years. And thank you for coming with me today. And to everybody here, I echo all those feelings, because I think it's just more special than if you graduate from a big university. And I think about Coach Courtway and his family and a lot of you in here, and I won't go into detail with several of you. But Coker, thanks for the rides back and forth to Fort Smith. I probably have told you several times, but I tell you again today. Thank you all.
Buddy Valines.
What do you know? Congratulations.
Yeah, I guess maybe all of us felt like it when we were going to college. I felt like, I'm getting ready to go to college, and it's going to be a sophistication and all of that. Well, you mentioned about looking for the weekend. I found the best thing to do was, as you're walking through campus, as the week passes, you start looking for these signs that said, ice cream social, 3 o'clock in the field outside. Then you knew when to run down to Palarm and get your beer for the ice cream social. Now, the other was Joe Stein, my longtime best friend, whose memory has gotten a little weird lately, but my longtime best friend from even grade school, we decided we'd room together. So we get here, we're in Martin Hall, Chinatown Dead End, had a great year on that, but we decided that we were going to move out into town. So we live in the little apartment above the garage of Father Putnote Upton. And he gave us some experiences I probably shouldn't share. Like, he drove his car into the lake one time, a brand new car, and he brought it back out and he drained it and he drove it again for as long as I know. But the most fun, because we were in town, we had to play for the Townman Turkeys, athletic football team. And Bob Lyford, every game, would go out and bring our mascot, a turkey, and we'd gather around it and we'd gobble. That's sophistication, folks. I could tell some other stories about Bob and others, but I'm not sure that the statute of limitation is run on some of these things. So I will say this sincerely. The 2 things I really got: lifelong best friends, and I found my calling at Hendricks. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Frank Warren.
Oh, they saved the best for last, right? I owe a great thanks to the institution of Hendrix College. I think maybe you could say that God had something to do with it, but a couple of years before my oldest sister graduated from high school here in Conway, my mother, Ruth King, was secretary to Dr. Steele. And Ruth said, Gene, there's a position open in the admissions office under Gene Wilburn, who I got to speak to briefly. And so Mother, encouraged by her friend Ruth King, applied for the job and got it. As a result, all 4 of the Warren kids got a free tuition ride at Hendricks. We all got to spend a year in the dorm to really experience college life, but I'm very grateful for that. Buddy touched on it, but I want to elaborate on a separate instance with the town men. That was a very creative group, and we had a project going one time. If you'll remember the bulletin board in the student union, we had posted all-you-can-eat homemade ice cream for $5, and everything went well until Don Dattinger found out that we weren't serving ice cream. So there was a little bit of trouble there. One of my not so fond memories when they changed, maybe it's from 2 semesters to the 3-3 plan, but they created 7:30 a.m. Saturday classes. And I had I think it was either general or abnormal psych at 7:30 on Saturday mornings. That was quite an experience. I would like to test your memory, and you can talk to me afterwards. I want to know how many of you can crest off from memory. See me later, okay?
Thank you, Frank. I think I got a message that Bob Britton. Is Bob here? Very good.
There he is.
Come on up and receive your medallion.
Thank you.
I didn't plan on speaking today. In fact, I didn't plan on attending, and my wife decided that we were going, so I packed my bag and got here. A little bit late for the ceremony, as you can see. I appreciate it. I see some Paul Guerin, some friendly faces out there. Nancy. Okay, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Karen Cobb Britton. Yeah. brand new. Oh, okay, good. Are there any other members present from the class of 1969? Whose name I didn't call? Okay, good. Are there any other members from previous classes? We have a few medallions left. We order our medallions in February, and we got we estimated pretty closely, yeah. So we have 3 medallions left. Yeah, it is. We've already got yours, hon. They can come next year, but if there's anybody here that has not received their medallion from a previous year. Okay, John, come on up. Yeah.
I'm going to. I came out of one of the big schools, Little Rock Central. I was in the bottom 2/3 of my class, and I was going to Henderson, and a Methodist preacher, I don't know how many of us were impacted by Methodist preachers in our lives, Dr. Reverend Clint Burleson said, "John, you ought to go to Hendricks." This was 2 weeks before the term started. And I was going to Henderson, and I said, "Well, if you can get me in, I'll go." And about a week later, I got a call from Hendricks, and they said, "We'd like for you to be a part of the class of 1967." So I went in 1963. Like one of my other friends here, I had a 4.0 my first year. I had a 1.9 my first semester, and a 2.1 at the end. I did graduate. I went on to Perkins School of Theology, and I walked into my first class. There was a student in front of me from Yale, a student behind me from Harvard, a student on my right from Texas A&M, and I thought, well, I've left Hendricks and gone to hell. Because there was no way that I was going to matriculate in that environment. But I did. And I thank Hendrix College for that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else from a previous class? Okay, come on up.
Yes, you bet. I'm Donna Christian from the class of 68, and I have to say that Hendricks really kind of defined my life up until now and probably will continue. Of course, I got a great education, but it was early October of 1964, I guess it was 4, that I was sitting on the stairs in Galloway looking out the south door, and it was a beautiful fall night. And all of a sudden, this guy came walking around the old building that was out here. I can't think of what it was, and walked diagonally down the sidewalk and went around to the front of Galloway. Well, while I was sitting there, one of my mates in the dorm came walking by, and I said, "Sandra, you know who that guy is?" And she said, "Yeah, that's Russ Stavern, and he's going to have a date with so-and-so tonight from our same floor." And I watched him, and then he started to kind of disappear around that corner, and I went out and went down the steps and looked at him, and
I didn't meet him until the spring of the next year, and I had completely forgotten about that. But my roommate and his friend got us together, and the rest is history. We've been married for 50 years now, have one boy, and love Hendricks very much and all of the friends we made here. Thank you.
I'm just going to say I chased her till she caught me. This has been a great institution. I came from out of state. I had relatives here, and they said, why don't you come down to Conway? And I made application, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Met Donna, 50 years. We have a son. We've had a wonderful life in the military, in FAA, and I worked out in Little Rock for 14 years. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience knowing all of you. And as everyone says, the Hendricks family is just tremendous.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories about your time at Hendricks, and welcome to the club. New members and your guests have a standing invitation to join us next year to welcome the incoming class, and we hope to see you soon. Ellis?
Well, once again, on behalf of the Alumni Office, congratulations to all the 69 inductees. We've got a lot going on this weekend, so let me remind you of just a few things, and then I've got a couple more announcements that I'll need your help with. Immediately after this event today, there's a reception in Galloway Parlor, so you're all invited for the Half Century Club members to join that. At 3:30 this afternoon, there will be tours of campus, which will leave from Galloway if you'd like to participate in that. The classes of 1954, 64, and 69 have some reunion parties this evening. The back at Hendricks, or Bridging Alums of Color at Hendricks, has a meet and greet this evening at 7:30 at Cajun's Wharf in Little Rock. And as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow morning in this room, the Alumni Awards Banquet will take place at 10 o'clock in this room. At 11:30, as Bill alluded to earlier about Barbara Horton, nobody has probably touched more alumni, made more phone calls, written more notes, cared more for our alumni than Barbara Horton. She came here in the summer of 1986. I first came for the first time in the summer of 1990 and had the pleasure of working with her off and on the last 30 years. We're going to miss her deeply. Her reception is at 11:30 tomorrow after the Alumni Awards Banquet, and that will be in the Mills Library in the Mills Center. And then there are reunion parties all across Conway and Little Rock tomorrow. And don't forget, on Sunday, we had the Alumni Memorial Service, which is always a very meaningful event, which we recognize all of the alumni and their family members who have passed away since this service last year. So, a couple of things. We will need, at the conclusion, after the benediction, we'd like the class of 1969 to all come to this, to the front for a group photograph. We also would like to get photos of the class of 1949, 54, 59, and 64 as well. So I think if the non-69 classes can all gather on that end, the north end of the building, and the 69 class can come to the front, and then the photographer will help us organize and take it from there. Now, when you gave all your stories earlier, many of you talked about Bob McGill and some of your memories with the choir, so I know we have some choir members here. So if you were in the choir, please stand up right now, because I'm going to need your help in just a moment. Okay? Look on your table, and on your program, there is actually the backside of today's program, the alma mater is listed. And so in just a moment, what I would like to do is, with the help of all these choir members, I know there's more than that. If you were in the choir or wanted to be in the choir, please stand. If you're in a church choir, please stand. We need some people with some good voices, and any one of you who would like to kick it off. The alma mater is listed on the back of the program, and I'd ask for y'all to get us started, and then we'll follow the alma mater with the benediction.
Kindly is thy
Thank you very much. JJ?
Receive this benediction as we've listened to the stories of celebration and inspiration from the class of 1969. May the next 50 years strengthen our relationships, no matter the miles or the circumstances. May visiting Hendricks always feel like coming home, and may God's presence and protection be with us until we meet again. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, JJ. And the class of 69, please come forward for your photo. And those other reunion years, please go to the north end. Thank you very much.